اجازه بدید بگم که ما امشب یک حرفه‌ای رو در عالم فاندریزینگ فیلم اینجا داریم. I have the honor to welcome Mrs. Gabriele Brunenmeyer, who is with us tonight, and I'm sure we have a lot of questions to ask from her, and of course I know that she will provide the best answers to all your questions. Now I would like to ask you to please join us up there, and Hussein Fazal. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you. خیلی متشکرم برای تشریف فرماییتون. ممکنه لطفاً از گبریل سوال کنید که شغل اصلی گبریل چیه؟ شغل شما چیه تو اروپا؟ چی کار میکنید؟ و یک شرح کوتاهی راجع به این شغل بدید به ما.
Gabriel, can you please tell us about your main profession and tell us what you do exactly?
That's a good question. Hello, first of all, hello to all of you. I'm very happy and honored to be here for my very first time.
Microphone is off. Wait, please.
Oh, sorry. Look. Okay, I just said something very important for me, but maybe not so much for you. Welcome to you. I'm very happy and honored that I am able to talk to you. I hope I understood that I'm announced as a financing expert, which is kind of not really my main profession. What I'm doing in my professional life is an answer where it always makes me smile. I would say that what we can call I'm a kind natural born networker and consultant. I have studied like literature and politology and sociology, as we study a lot in Germany, you know, like these breadless arts. And after this, I worked as a cultural journalist for a long while. And then I moved from a small town in Germany, in the south of Germany, to Berlin, where I started working on sets in film production, because actually I always dreamed about becoming a filmmaker and doing my own films. And over the years I find out that my talent is more to work with filmmakers and to help them make their films, because I was thinking there are a lot of people around which are kind of talented, but it's better if we put our energy together and help the people who are really talented. She has to translate.
Okay, can you give me a break?
I was just remembering something. Yes.
سلام میکنن و میگن باعث افتخارشونه که توی جمع ما حضور دارن و میگن که ایشون در واقع به اسم یک حرفه‌ای در مسائل اقتصادی معرفی شدن، جذب سرمایه و چیزای اینطوری که در واقع درست نیست اینطوری که خودشون گفتن، و ایشون بیشتر کار مشاوره اقتصادی انجام میدن برای جذب سرمایه. رشته اصلیشون ادبیات، جامعه شناسی و رشته‌های شبیهش بوده و ایشون در واقع مشاور فرهنگی هستن بیشتر. از یکی از شهرهای جنوب آلمان به برلین مهاجرت کردن و اونجا شروع کردن روی صحنه‌های فیلمبرداری کار کردن سر صحنه، چون که از کودکی رویای فیلمساز شدن رو داشتن، ولی بعد از یه مدتی متوجه شدن که استعداد اصلیشون کار کردن با کارگردان هاست که خیلی استعدادهای زیادی بینشون هست.
پیچینگ غالباً یک به اصطلاح تکنیک فاندریزینگ اروپایی و آمریکایی تلقی میشه. ما تو ایران خیلی خیلی کم به تکنیک‌های این کار آشنا هستیم یا اساساً این رو غالباً نمیشناسیم.
Pitching is a European term for fundraising, and Iranians are not really familiar with that term.
ممکنه لطفاً به ما بگی از کجا شروع کنیم این فرم از جمع‌آوری سرمایه رو برای فیلم‌ها، به خصوص برای فیلم کوتاه؟
Can you tell us where to begin this sort of fundraising, especially for short films?
Yes, of course. And thank you very much. It's a great honor sitting next to you.
Oh,
Mr.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Honor is all mine.
Just maybe I continue with where I stopped, because you asked me my main profession first. So I ended up actually to work for European funds, film funds called media program, which are existing. I think this can be interesting because in Europe this is a big instrument of starting your film funding career. In the place where I'm coming from, I'm also working for I'm coming from Germany, as you understood from my accent, and I make a break now for the translator.
I speak German, so I know the German accent. It's okay. Yeah.
But now you can translate. I don't want to, or shall I continue for hours? Do you want to translate now?
No, go on.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you're brilliant. Thank you for that. And I'm also working for a young talent fund in Germany, which has not such a big budget over the year, but we supporting the first and the second films after the university, starting with short films, and we moving over to long feature films. And I think if you are in countries, in most of the European countries, you are in the great condition that you, as a young filmmaker, when you come out of university or other kinds of education, there are institutions only there for you to help you with your first films and to make them happen. So.
ایشون در یک شرکتی کار میکنن که کار فاندریزینگ انجام میده برای استعدادهای جوان و تو این سازمانی که کار میکنن دانشجویان رو بعد از فارغ التحصیل شدن از دانشگاه، ایشون از آلمان میان، بعد از فارغ التحصیل شدن از دانشگاه فیلم اول و دومشون رو ساپورت میکنه این ارگانیزیشنی که ایشون میان. اول از فیلم‌های کوتاه شروع میکنه و بعد به فیلم‌های بلند میرسه و این یه اتفاقی که در اروپا خیلی رایجه. وقتی از دانشگاه فارغ التحصیل میشین، سازمان‌هایی هستن که تضمین میکنن شما بعد از اتمام تحصیلتون بتونید فیلم بسازید و کار کنید.
پیچینگ چه مراحلی داره؟ آیا مثلا شما فیلمنامه فیلمسازان رو میخواید؟ چی ازشون میخواید که تصمیم بگیرید برید برای اینها فاندریزینگ کنید؟
What are the steps in a pitching session? Where do they begin from the scenario or?
Yeah, I mean the very first step I think everywhere in the world is that you have an idea for a film which is in a way special. And to be special, there are two different possibilities. You have really a subject in your hand which nobody else treated before, which is kind of rare. You often can find this in documentaries when you are really the first one who enter in a subject. And the other thing is that you have a way of telling a story which is in a way new, unique, refreshing, disturbing, interesting, things like that. So this is the first thing that you have to think about. What is my project, my short film about? I think in the field of short film you have really a big competition.
همه جا این پروسه از یه ایده شروع میشه، ایده‌ای که خاص باشه برای فیلم. حالا دو تا اتفاق میتونه بیفته. یکی این که این ایده یک موضوعی باشه که کسی تا حالا راجبش نشنیده، که این بیشتر در مستند رایجه و اتفاق میفته، و یکی دیگهش نوعی از قصه گوییه که جذابه، که نفسگیره، که تازه است، که نابه. و این مرحله اولیه که باید رد بشه که به این سوال جواب داده بشه که پروژه من درباره چیه، چون رقابت در بازار فیلم کوتاه خیلی زیاده و این خیلی مهمه.
فیلمسازانی که شما انتخاب میکنید براشون پول جمع کنید، فاندریزینگ کنید، اونها چه چیزهایی رو باید به شما نشان بدن؟ آیا مثلا نشان بدن فیلم‌های خوبی ساختن، یه چیزایی توی رزومه‌شون داشته باشن؟ معیار شما برای اینکه انتخاب میکنید کسی رو برید براش فاندریزینگ کنین چیه؟ به غیر از بحث ایدهشون، به غیر از بحث فیلمنامه‌شون، چه چیزای دیگه ازشون انتظار دارید؟
Okay, other than the idea, Other than the idea, what do you expect the filmmakers to provide for you? Any documents, anything? What are your measures for choosing a filmmaker other than the idea?
The second thing, I mean, let me just go back again to this step, because I always make breaks also for the translation and I have to study that. It's really not so easy. I wanted just to have a good idea. That's the first thing. And the second thing is what we also do when we do the training, and that's the only reason why we're training, that you understand what is the center of your project. It's really so important, you know, that you have a story where you know where it starts, where it's set. It's so important that you can really describe the world of your film, because this is what I say in the beginning, that it must be special. You should decide about what is the tonality of my film. There are different possibilities, but you should really know, is it a serious film? Is it a horror movie? Is it a science fiction? Is it something which people should be afterwards completely happy or unhappy? Is it a film where they especially also, I have to add that in the short film you have a possibility to tell a story, and you also give a view on the world in a short time, and which is, practical speaking, don't need so much money as if you start with a feature film. And then I will continue after translation with the papers and whatever you need.
Okay. برگردیم به اون قسمت مراحلی که داشتیم گفتیم مرحله اول ایده است. مرحله دوم در واقع همون اتفاقی که در پروسه ترینینگ میفته برای فیلمساز، اینه که محور فیلم چیه؟ فیلم از کجا شروع میشه؟ حینش چه اتفاقی میفته؟ دنیای فیلم چجوریه که این دنیا باید دنیای خاصی باشه؟ تونالیته فیلم چیه؟ ژانرش چیه؟ فیلم ترسناکه؟ فیلم علمی تخیلیه؟ مخاطب بعد از این فیلم خوشحال میاد بیرون، ناراحت میاد بیرون، چه حسی داره؟ تو فیلم کوتاه این مهمه که این اتفاق میتونه بیفته که یا یه قصه‌ای گفته بشه و میتونه این اتفاق بیفته که همزمان یک تصویری از دنیا ارائه بشه.
And since the competition is so great and so big, that's also that your first step is to find attraction, you know. You have to find people who really like you as a filmmaker and who like the project you are doing. When you're going out in the world, I think something which is very special, that till now, I mean, you're doing, as I understood here, a lot of short films, and you have also a very special support for this, and I think this is something which is really great. In the most countries, you have short film as the first and second experiment really for a young filmmaker to prove that he is able to make films, and so the short film is always like a business card and as an entrance in the world of feature film. I think it's not exactly the same here. And it's also not exactly the same maybe in France, but in most of the countries over the world, short film is, and this is a real pity, not always easy to finance when you are not young people anymore.
Well, you shouldn't worry about that at all. You are still 30 years old and that's it.
خب رقابت در دنیای فیلم کوتاه خیلی زیاده.
It was too much.
فیلم شما باید مخاطب رو جذب کنه و شما باید دنبال آدم‌هایی باشید که از شما به عنوان فیلمساز خوششون میاد و پروژه‌تون رو دوست دارن. چیزی که راجبش گفتن اینه که اینجا فیلم‌های کوتاهی که ساخته میشه به هدف فیلم کوتاه بودن ساخته میشه، ولی در کشورهای خارجی فیلم‌های کوتاهی که ساخته میشن بیشتر به این هدفن که نمونه‌ای از فیلم سینما، یعنی هدفشون جذب سرمایه برای ورژن سینمایی همون ایده کوتاه. و این روشی که در ایران هست گویا که متفاوته با تمام جهان و تو فرانسه هم اینطور متفاوته.
I can continue from
sure.
like, because if you want to go for fundraising, to come finally back to your first question, These are, you have mostly to write something down. You know, you have two possibilities. What we are doing here and what we will show also the results tomorrow. This is this public pitching where people are standing in front of the audience and explaining in a certain time, 3 up to 7 minutes, about their project. And there is also another possibility, and these kind of events you have during festivals everywhere, and you have it also at co-production markets especially, and sometimes you have, and this is always one of the best steps to enter the international film industry, in trainings.
این پروسه فاندریزینگ دو تا اتفاق میتونه بیفته در حینش. یکیش یه نمونه‌ایه که فردا انجام میشه همینجا، اینه که شما جلوی مخاطب میستید و در یک زمان مشخص که 3 تا 7 دقیقه است پروژه خودتون رو برای مردم توضیح میدین. اتفاق دیگه که میتونه بیفته اینه که در طول جشنواره‌ها شما با مردم صحبت میکنید و دنبال بودجه برای فیلمتون میگردید که این بهترین راه برای ورود به دنیای بین‌المللی فیلمسازی.
And to enter in all these systems, you have to do applications. And mostly when you go for applications, it's when you go for a training, you have to do an application. When you go for a co-production market, you have to do an application. When you go for a co-production market, you have to go for an application. When you go for a film fund, you have to do an application. So and then maybe in there you have always to answer certain things. The first thing is mostly what people are asking in a way, who are you? I mean, you know, when you're preparing applications, public pitching, whatever, it's very important that you sit down before and you prepare it very properly. Your producer together with the writer, director, or maybe you can even include the DOP or whomever, and you can sit down together and you can start. I have actually kind of 6 questions which are very helpful if you can answer them before you go out, and maybe if it's time and if you allow me, I can maybe in the next step explain this question to you.
Absolutely.
هر کاری که بخواید، یعنی هر روشی رو برای جذب سرمایه برای فیلمتون انتخاب کنید، کاری که باید بکنید اینه که اپلیکیشن پر کنید. حالا چه یه بازارچه بین‌المللی باشه، چه بخواید فاند بگیرید، چه بخواید در یک دوره شرکت کنید، یه اپلیکیشن باید پر کنید که یک سری سوال‌های مشخص داره. مهمترین سوالی که شما باید بهش جواب بدید اینه که تو کی هستی. این سوالیه که خیلی مهمه و برای جواب دادنش شاید لازم باشه که با عوامل فیلمتون بشینید و صحبت کنید، با تدوینگر، با فیلمبردار، با تهیه کننده، با فیلمنامه‌نویس. و 6 تا سوال هست که احتمالاً خیلی کمک میکنن به جواب دادن به این سوال که اگه فرصت بشه 6 تا سوال رو در اختیارمون میذارم و راجع بهش صحبت میکنیم با هم.
Good.
Okay. So it's okay if I go a bit in the details.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. And because before you talk to somebody, you should know everything about your film and your plans yourself the best. That's really important. So it's very important when is the right moment that I go out with my project. When it's the right moment when I start talking to people outside my house and my family and my friends, to this which we call the first professional step in the industry.
قبل از حرف زدن راجع به فیلممون باید همه چیز رو راجع به خودمون و راجع به پروژه‌مون بدونیم. باید بدونیم که اون زمان مناسب برای ارائه این فیلم به آدم‌ها دقیقاً چه زمانیه. زمان مناسب برای اینکه بس کنیم حرف زدن راجع بهش رو با اعضای خانواده‌مون و با آدم‌های دیگری وارد صحبت بشیم.
And because before you can convince somebody, you have to be convinced yourself, and you have to know really what project you have in your hand. And it sounds so simple, but it's really, I think, the most complicated first step to understand what is it exactly what I want to do beside making a film and wanting to get money.
و قبل از قانع کردن دیگری خودتون رو باید قانع کنید که پیچیده ترین اتفاقی که باید بیفته و پیچیده ترین سوالی که باید بهش جواب بدید اینه که بجز اینکه میخوام فیلم بسازم و پول درارم به دنبال چه چیزی هستم.
And one important criteria, it sounds very easy again, but one really important criteria whether people will give you money, select you for their co-production market, or later also for your festival, is the very simple, very deep and very philosophical questions, who are you? So before you go out, you should know exactly who are you, not in the whole comparison with the universe, but in relation to your project.
یک پیچیده ترین سوالی که دوباره میگن باید جواب بدید این سوال فلسفی تو کی هستیه و این جواب این سوال رو نه در قیاس با جهان پیرامون بلکه در قیاس با پروژه خودتون باید جواب بدید اگر که میخواین برای اون فاند، برای اون همکاری، برای اون پروژه یا هر چیزی که دنبالش هستید انتخاب بشید.
And it's very important, as you also know from festival catalogs and everywhere, that the film industry is an industry which is very much also driven by names of directors.
و چیزی که خیلی راحت از کاتالوگ‌های جشنواره‌ها میتونید بفهمید اینه که صنعت سینما صنعتیه که خیلی مربوط به اسم آدم‌ها و فیلمساز هاست.
And the second thing which is really important is the people who are with you. So, for example, when you go for money, it's also very important who is the film company who is at your side. Production company, sorry.
و چیز دیگه‌ای که خیلی مهمه آدم‌هایی هستند که همراه شمان. اگه شما برای یک فیلم رو دارین می‌سازید، اون کمپانی که داره حمایتتون می‌کنه کیه؟
So there are different possibilities to answer the question. If you are young and nobody knows you yet, you can sell the innocence and the energy and the whole power you're having in your companies. So it can be, for example, really interesting for people on markets and also for fundings when you are a young team, a young company, you have maybe studied together, you have done some educational programs together, you are just friends, one is a great writer, the other one knows how to make the camera, the other one knows how to raise money, and if people like this come together, this is in the film and create together a kind of a network, a company, or however you will call it. This can be, for example, something really interesting for people who want to give you money or want to choose you for other things, even then later for the festivals.
امکانهای مختلفی وجود داره اگر که جوانید و شناخته شده نیستید اون انرژی و قدرتی که دارید رو میتونید به عرصه بذارید. برای مثال یه گروه جوان که با هم دوستن یا با هم درس خوندن یا با هم یه دوره‌ای رو گذروندن یا فقط یک سری دوستن که مهارت‌های مختلفی دارن، یه نفر نویسنده خوبیه، یکی فیلمبردار خوبیه، این یه گروه، یه شبکه اینطوری خیلی میتونه برای داورهایی که تصمیم میگیرن این فاند رو در اختیارتون بذارن یا نه جالب باشه.
And who are you means also what kind of film you like, what kind of film you want to make, what kind of films you have already made. It can be interesting when you present, you know, you have, normally there's an application form and there is written exactly what people want from you. I don't know exactly how it works in Iran. I only know it from the other countries, but mostly it started that you have to put the title and the lens and maybe the genre of the film. Afterwards, you have to give like a short explanation, a short synopsis, like a called logline, what is your film is about, then a synopsis, which is the short summary of the film. Afterwards, what is always really interesting is the director's note, why I want to make this film. What is my style as a director, things like this. So if you have done, coming back to the question who I am, you can also talk about the films you have already done, even if they have been on national festivals only, nobody abroad has seen them, but you can talk about them, you can try to make them available, and what is next, what I said in the very beginning, next to your own voice, also the subject you find for a film, it's always also, and you know this maybe from your own experience, finding also films which telling something about a region in the world where you don't know so much about it for the moment, or finding another way of storytelling as you have a very strong one in this country here.
در راستای اون سوال تو کی هستی، میتونید این سوال ها رو تو ذهنتون داشته باشید که چه جور فیلمی دوست دارید، چه جور فیلم هایی تا حالا ساختید و چه جور فیلم هایی دلتون میخواد بسازید. نمیدونن که اینجا سبکش چجوریه، ولی اونجا معمولا اینطوری که شما باید یه فرم پر کنید که تو اون فرم شما اسم فیلم رو مینویسید، یه شوریل یا یه خلاصه از نماهای اون فیلم رو قرار میدید، بعدش پلات و سیناپس خلاصه اینا رو مینویسید و نهایتاً یه توضیح مختصر کارگردان باید ضمیمه باشه که چرا میخوام این فیلم رو بسازم. درباره فیلم هایی که قبلا ساختید حتی میتونید راجع به فیلم هایی صحبت کنید که کسی تا حالا ندیده، راجع بهش صحبت کنید و صدای خودتون رو برسونید راجع به اون موضوعی که دغدغه‌تونه و میخواین راجع بهش فیلم بسازید. از تجربیاتتون بگین و این میتونه فیلمتون میتونه راجع به منطقه های ناشناخته باشه که تا حالا کسی راجع بهش فیلمی نساخته، یا میتونه یک روش نوینی در فیلم، یعنی یک روش نوینی در قصه گویی باشه.
So you see that only in the field who I am you have a lot of potential to convince people or to attract people. Of course, when you are a filmmaker who has already had a film in a festival or gets awards or things like this is always something where people are interested in, but it's mainly important for people who want to give you money or who want to distribute or sell your film. So that for them it's good if you have this kind of really values, like a known name with an award in a maybe known festival. But the other part of the industry, these are people, they run around and they want to find the new talents in the world. And there are a lot of them also this year on your festival, so spy on them.
همونطور که گفتم خیلی پتانسیل زیادی داره جواب دادن به همین سوال من کی هستم برای جذب کردن آدم ها. حالا در این حین اگر که در فستیوال مطرحی شرکت کردید یا جایزه گرفتید، آدم ها دنبال این هم میگردن و این هم براشون جالبه. به هر حال آدمایی که میخوان پول بدن یا پخش کنن، اگه اسمتون رو شنیده باشن یا اگه در فستیوال مطرحی اسمتون بوده باشه، به هر حال براشون فاکتور مثبتیه. ولی خیلی هم هستن که دنبال استعدادهای جوان میگردن به جای آدم‌هایی که اسمشون پخش شده در جای مختلف، و حتی تو این جشنواره خودمون هم هستن و میگن که پیداشون کنید و حواستون بهشون باشه.
So the first step in the fundraising is also to go out of your privacy and to get in contact with other people. And therefore, festivals are really good, and it's also very important, you know, when you meet people, you can learn also how the rules, whom they know, because the whole film industry is also, as you know, a big network. So if you meet somebody from one country, all of a sudden you are introduced to another country, and you understand the rules, you have people. Because I think also for you it could be interesting to meet people who help you also in terms of maybe co-productions, even if you're doing short films.
از حریم خصوصیتون بیاین بیرون، وارد ارتباط با بقیه بشید و جشنواره خیلی محیط مناسبیه برای این اتفاق. با آدم‌های جدید آشنا میشید، شبکه سازی میکنید، حتی آدم‌هایی که از کشورهای دیگه اومدن که قوانین دیگه‌ای دارن که شما وقتی با اون قوانین آشنا میشین به هر حال جهان بینیتون گسترده میشه و با هر آدم جدیدی که وارد ارتباط تازه‌ای میشید، آدم شما رو به یک شبکه جدیدی از آدم‌های دیگه معرفی میکنه و شاید حتی این همکاری‌های بین‌المللی هم جالب باشه.
And there are a few markets in the world and in Europe which are specialized also. They have markets as you start having here for short films, or there is a very big market, for example, for short films in France, in Clermont-Ferrand. I think this is the biggest one in Europe. And so there are also always two possibilities. The one is that you just apply for a training or for a festival, and the other possibility is that you really buy a ticket and travel to a country where is this market and try to make contacts there, which is kind of maybe far away from you here in France, but it's maybe also possible.
بازارهای مارکت‌های تخصصی فیلم کوتاه هستن همه جا که یکی از مهمتریناش توی فرانسه است. حالا چجوری میتونیم وارد این مارکت ها بشیم؟ یه راهش اینه که توی اون فستیوال وارد یه دوره بشیم مثل این تالنت کمپوس ها مثلا. یک راه دیگرش اینه که بلیط بخریم و بریم اون کشور و اونجا شروع کنیم معاشرت کردن با آدم ها.
Other possibilities who are really very, very nice are also things like the Berlinale co-production, the Berlinale talents. You know, there are many talent campuses and you have to look where are international things. And I mean, if you have questions, you also can come all the time to me. It's very hard to tell like this which are the interesting places to go, because it also depends very much on what you are looking for, what kind of film. But in general, there are places in the world where you are very welcome when you are an interesting character with an interesting background and a good project in its hand. His hand.
مثلا جشنواره فیلم برلین هم امکان این کوپروداکشن رو داره، همکاری مشترک، و هم یه تالنت کمپوس داره که هست برای این کار و اینطوری در این فضا معرفی اینجور چیزا سخته، برای اینکه خیلی بستگی داره به اینکه چی میخواین و دنبال چی هستید. ولی معمولا اگه که به این جور جاها برید خودتون رو معرفی کنید و اگه آدم جالبی باشید با یه پس زمینه جالب حتما خیلی استقبال میشه ازتون.
The second thing which is for the moment, because the film industry, I don't know how it's in your country, but where I'm traveling a lot, they have always kind of fashions. For the moment, people are very much interested in the motivation. Why do you want to make this film? What has this story to do with you? And which is in the same line, why you are the right person to tell this story or to make this film.
در همه خیلی جاهای دنیا اینطوریه که اون چیزی که خیلی براشون مهمه اون موتیویشن یا انگیزه فیلمساز برای ساختن اون فیلم، که این فیلم چه ربطی به اون فیلمساز داره، آیا تجربه شخصی اون فیلمساز با این ماجرا داشته، یا این سوال که چرا تو آدم مناسبی هستی برای ساخت این فیلم.
بر اساس چیزی که گفتید فیلمساز باید بدونه طرحش چیه، ایدهش چیه، خیلی خیلی خوب راجع به کاری که میخواد بکنه، فیلمی که میخواد بسازه بدونه. آیا اینها حکم میکنه که فیلمساز یک زبان بین‌المللی رو بتونه خودش صحبت کنه؟
So the things you said that the filmmaker should have an idea and be have that idea. Does this mean that the filmmaker need to know an international language to reflect the inner idea? Is that necessary, an international language?
Do you mean to speak an international language yourself? I mean, if you travel, it's very helpful if you speak a language, because otherwise it's really difficult to have contact. What is very often too, it depends where you come from. I mean, if I come from Germany, people expect from me that I speak English and maybe even French when I'm traveling. We have in the film industry an English which sounds like mine, with different accents from all over the world, and this is kind of an interesting way of communication. Very often the films that you have to do, they should be in your original language. You should not go out with an international film, but it would be nice if you could talk about your film, which can be shot in your home language for sure. You should just be able to communicate in a language, and you can see tomorrow that it's possible also in our pitching. Yeah.
اگر که سفر میکنید به هر حال بهتره که یک زبان خارجی بلد باشید، ولی بستگی داره که از کجا میایید. مثلا ایشون از آلمان میان، ازشون انتظار میره که انگلیسی و شاید فرانسه رو بلد باشن که صحبت کنن. ولی چیزی که هست اینه که فیلمی که در یک جشنواره بین‌المللی به نمایندگی از کشورتون دارید ارائه میدید باید به زبان مادریتون باشه و شما باید بتونید به یک زبان بین‌المللی راجع به اون فیلم صحبت کنید. یعنی مهم نیست که زبان فیلم زبان غیر مادری، یعنی زبان بین‌المللی باشه. شما باید بتونید راجع به فیلمتون به زبان دیگری صحبت کنید.
شما به چندین زبان تسلط دارید. آیا توی چندین کشور فاندریزینگ میکنید؟
You can speak multiple languages. Does that mean you do fundraising in multiple countries?
No, I always work in this poor English you're hearing here from me when I'm not working in Germany. So that works. You can make a lot of things with if your English level is on mine. So don't be afraid. And it's also, we have to, there are two things because for me it sounds fundraising is always like, you know exactly already where you have to go. And filmmaking is also, it sounds more romantic than it is a kind of an adventure. Because really it's hard to get the money together. And I mean, if you live in countries like Germany, you know where you can go, but it's not means that you, on the places you know where you can go, will also get the money you need. So you spend like, when I work with my young filmmakers, they start writing, they had an idea, then they go, the next step is a treatment. I think you're working exactly the same way. Then you make a script out of it, and then when you understand what you have in your hand and you know really what your film is about, what should be the tonality, how you will do it, what is the team, and then in the next step you have to go out and you have to convince these people, and then you have a huge competition, and even in the countries where it's easy, I mean where you know exactly where you have to go, it's not guaranteed that you can get the financing together. So even in these countries with great film funding systems, the filmmakers are always forced to find other ideas. I think there, in a lot of countries, you have the possibility to convince private sponsors, and in Germany that's not usual, but in Italy, for example, it's usual. In America you have to do that. Here I heard you have to do it. So there are different countries where it's really normal that if there is an entrepreneur or somebody who really likes your film, that they give you the money for the film. In some country they give it to kind of not to pay so high taxes. In other countries, as I now learned from my new Chinese friends, that they gave like 500,000 projects in an art house movie from Europe, and the only thing they want to have in return is a walk on the red carpet. So there are very many ways to find money.
Okay. ایشون میگن که من وقتی در آلمان نیستم فقط به این زبان انگلیسی که الان میشنوید صحبت میکنم. چیزی که هست اینه که مسیر فیلمسازی خیلی سخت‌تر از چیزی که به نظر میرسه. یک کشورهایی مثل آلمان راههای خیلی زیادی هست برای جذب این سرمایه، جاهای مختلفی هست که میتونید برید و آدم‌ها معمولاً میدونن که کجا باید برن، ولی اینکه این شرکت‌ها هستن دلیل نمیشه که لزوماً اون فاند مورد نظر رو بگیرن. حتی ایشون وقتی با فیلمسازهایی که جوانن و زیر نظرشونن کار میکنن، خب اول فیلمنامه است، بعد فیلمنامه رو توسعه میدن و بعد به یه ایده کلی از فیلمشون میرسن، میگه ژانرش چیه، قصه‌اش چیه، کانتنتش چیه، و قدم بعدی اینه که آدم‌ها رو باید قانع کنن و بعد از اون وارد یک رقابت خیلی بزرگ میشن. حتی تو کشوری مثل آلمان که راههای خیلی زیادی هست برای جذب سرمایه، هیچ تضمینی نداره که این فاند در اختیار فیلمساز قرار بگیره و معمولا باید یک راه دیگری هم بیاندیشند برای جذب اون سرمایه. و یک راه دیگر هم هست که در آلمان خیلی رایج نیست، اونم اینه که وارد بخش خصوصی بشن، یعنی به یک شخص در واقع سرمایه گذار فیلم بشه، که خب اینجا خیلی رایجه ولی آلمان مثلا اینطوری نیست، ولی تو ایتالیا دوباره رایجه. و یه مسائل مالیاتی هم گاهی وقتا درگیرش میشه و اینو مطمئن نیستم درست متوجه شده باشم، ولی گویا در چین یه کمپانی وجود داره که 5,000 یورو در اختیار فیلمساز قرار میده و تنها انتظاری که داره اینه که فیلمساز در ازاش فقط روی رد کارپت راه بره، که تنها چیزیه که
سوال. آیا توی این موقعیت‌های پیچینگ ارجحیتی برای نوع فیلم وجود داره؟ مثلا فکر کنید که ارجحیتی برای فیلم داستانی قائلن، یا ارجحی برای فیلم مستند قائلن، یا مثلا اصلا برای مثلا فیلم اکسپریمنتال فرصتی نمیدن یا برای مثلا انیمیشن این طرف اون طرف؟ آیا توی این شرایط ارجحیتی برای نوع فیلم به خصوصی قائل میشن؟ A difficult question.
Oh, I'm curious.
In pitching sessions, are there some sort of preferences on the style of filmmaking? Like, are fiction films preferred to documentaries or experimentals or animations of any kind?
It's an interesting question, yes. It mostly you have, when you have pitching sessions, you have it combined with a certain way of filmmaking. So mostly they are kind of separated. On animation film festivals, you have animation film markets and you have animation documentary the other way around. For short films, there are, you know, you can see it, what is the profile of the festival. If there is a festival like which is super experimental, they will not like short genre movies, for example, there. But in regard, when you go for film funds, it's only the quality and the surprising moment which is really important. And you know that it's something special. I mean, it sounds always. Can you do you understand with this all these words? You know, what is something special? It's something which moves somebody. You know, it can make you aggressive, happy, give you a complete new point of view on the world, or just tell you a nice little scene out of life, which maybe is like the classical bigger than life. Yeah. So this is the important thing, not the genre.
خیلی سوال جالبیه سوالای دکتر، ولی معمولا جلسه‌های پیچینگ محوریت دارن. مثلا جلسه پیچینگ هست برای ژانر انیمیشن یا برای مستند یا داستانی و اینا جدا از همه و همینطور خیلی بستگی داره که اون جشنواره‌ای که داره این رو برگزار میکنه محوریتش چیه. مثلا اگه یک جشنواره فیلم‌های تجربی باشه غالباً از فیلم‌های مستند خیلی استقبال نمیکنه و برعکس. ولی در قضیه فاند اینطوری نیست. وقتی دارید دنبال فاند میگردید کیفیت فیلمتونه که اهمیت داره و اینکه ایده‌ای که دارید ایده خاصی باشه، چیزی باشه که تکون بده مخاطب رو. این تعریفشون از چیزی که خاص باشه، something special. اینکه یک جهان بینی جدید به مخاطب بده، اینکه انگار یک لایه‌ای رو از جلوی چشم‌های مخاطب برداره.
سوال، آیا وقتی که فیلمسازها خبر میشن که جلسات پیچینگی توی جشنواره است، آیا باید برای اونا ثبت نام کنن؟ آیا باید از قبل اطلاع بدن که میرن تو این جلسات شرکت میکنن؟ Difficult question.
When such pitching sessions are being held, should the filmmakers announce in advance that they are going to be there? Should they register, sign up, or any of these things?
Register mean, what do you mean by
putting
register?
Putting your name on the list?
Yes. It's very good, you know, because it's also, I mean, the most important thing, and this is also said that, as I said in the beginning, there is a big competition. So if you are invited to be in a session, a pitching session or whatever, you are already has got the first step. So this means that there are people interested or think that your project has a potential. As when you are in this moment, it's already the first step is done, and then it would be really good if you also inform everybody, or the people who invite you will inform everybody. I don't know whether you mean register in a legal wise.
To attend
more like
putting your name on the list.
همونطور که گفتن رقابت در این عرصه خیلی زیاده و وقتی به این مرحله میرسید که میخواید در یک جلسه پیچینگ شرکت کنید، به این معنیه که قدم اول رو برداشتید و چیزی که مهمه اینه که آدم‌ها رو در جریان بذارید که همچین تصمیمی گرفتید.
یه سوال دیگه، آیا سایت هایی هست این جلسات پیچینگ چجوری کجاها اعلام میشه که فیلمسازها بدونن ahead of time، بدونن که باید برن اونجاها، از کجا باید این اطلاعات رو پیدا کرد؟
Are there any websites for pitching sessions to inform the filmmakers to know when where they are being held, the pitching sessions, to attend them?
That's very difficult because mostly they are connected. I mean, you can see on the websites of festivals, for example, or to go to the Berlinale market, or I don't know what is available, because we had today also there is a nice short film festival in Berlin called Interfilm, where one of also the Iranian shorts is in an online competition, but unfortunately the films are blocked, so you cannot see them here. So I just would advise you, if you put in pitching, there are a lot of things there. There are also what is maybe important for you, and I think I would also very much understand your question, because when you talk about pitching and when you talk about fundraising, as when you talk about film writing or filmmaking, there is really no formula and there is no recipe, and it's not that I don't want to share it with you, it's such single, it's really depending from one project to the next. So it's so hard. I mean, when everything what I'm saying to you, it's kind of so general, and it sounds maybe, I hope you can ask all the questions to me to make it more specific for you. But the thing is really as simple that people are deciding when they give money to you or attention or time, they want to know that you are an interesting character, which can be everything. You should have something to say. I think this is completely important when you make a film. You should really have something to say. I don't mean that you have to make social spot or political movies. It can be only about the beauty of a flower or whatever it must, but there should be something which is a bit more than just telling any story. And you should also know what I said before, what I think is really important. You have to know why you want to make this film. What is your personal need to tell this story? And I think this is the key element everything starts with. Is it? Can I continue just with? This is. I say the same thing in other words. You understand also English, a lot of you, no? You look at me all the time like you understand what I'm saying. Okay, and it's so important that because you know it yourself. I mean, there are so many things outside, and since for short films there are the online platforms and this and that, and they are on YouTube and they are there and there. So there is a really, really big selection outside. So what is very important that people they are always looking for something which is really special. You maybe now it's time. Otherwise,
you're still putting the
you are so good in translating. It's incredible, your memory. But I make a little break now.
That's not really true. Anyway, خیلی سوال سختی پرسیدن یا خدا. چیزی که خیلی به عنوان مرجع اصلی میتونید بهش مراجعه کنید وبسایت جشنواره هاست. مثلا به طور خاص جشنواره فیلم برلین یه قسمتایی داره که دقیقاً توضیح داده برای اینکه وارد این جور مارکت ها و پیچینگ ها بشین بعد چیکار کنین. همینطور 2 تا جشنواره دیگه هست، جشنواره اینترفیلم که برای فیلم‌های کوتاه و جشنواره برلین شورتس که یک پلتفرم آنلاینه که البته اینجا مسدود شده، دسترسی نداریم بهش. و چیزی که هست اینه که هیچ قاعده و فرمولی وجود نداره برای این جور جلسات و اینطور نیست که ایشون نخوان بگن. خیلی کلیه و امیدوارم که شما بتونید سوالهای شخصی شده‌تون رو بپرسید که بتونن خیلی شخصی تر و جزئی تر جواب بدن. ولی چیزی که خیلی اصرار دارن بدونید اینه که برای اینکه آدم‌ها تصمیم بگیرن که وقت و زمان و توجه و پولشون رو در اختیار شما بذارن، چیزی که مهمه اینه که بدونن شما آدم جالبی هستید. پس زمینه جالبی دارید، ایده جالبی دارید، حرفی برای زدن دارید و این حرفی برای زدن داشتن منظورشون این نیست که یک عقیده سیاسی دارید یا چیزی شبیهش. این حرفتون میتونه راجع به گل باشه، حتی چیزی دارید که فرای یه قصه عادیه و این سوالی که چرا من میخوام این فیلم رو بسازم خیلی سوال مهمیه. اینکه چه نیاز شخصی میبینید که حتما باید این فیلم رو بسازید. اینها مهمترین چیزایی هستند که باید بهشون جواب بدید.
من میخوام یک کسی رو معرفی کنم که توی جلسات پیچینگ زیادی شرکت داشته. تا به حال من میدونم در خلال 15 سال اخیر ایشون شرکت داشته در این جلسات. اینجا مهرداد اسکویی نشسته که درست در این زمان داره در یکی از گرانترین رقابت‌های اروپایی پیچینگ میکنه. ممکنه که بتونیم چیزی هم بگیم که برای به درد مهرداد بخوره. ممکنه خود مهرداد هم بتونه بیاد تو و از تجربه هاش صحبت کنه.
He introduced Mehrdad Oskui, who has been attending the pitching sessions for 19 years and now is attending one of the most expensive expensive competitions, and maybe you will have something that he can also use, or maybe he can come up here and share his own experiences on that criteria.
He's a very famous international filmmaker. He's a documentary
I had the honor to meet him today for a bit longer, yes.
Oh, here.
Thank you.
آماده تر میرم برای ایتفای آمستردام.
Today was the last day of the jury meetings and the judgments, and you were writing the statements, and he spoke to you for 40 minutes, 1 hour after the session, and it was a very, very interesting session for him. He learned a lot from you, and he thinks he has new things to say in the ITFA competition now.
چیزی که میخوام بگم واقعا اتفاق مهمیه برای فیلمسازهای جوان حضور ایشون و اینکه هیچ وقت پیدا کردن پول و سرمایه ساده نیست، چه برای حرفه‌ای‌ها و چه برای جوان‌ترهایی که تازه میخوان شروع کنن.
اینو برای بقیه این ترجمه
میخوام بگم و یک چیزی هم میخوام بگم که یک کلمه هست به نام تالنت هانتر. میخوام راجع به این صحبت کنم. سوالمه چرا به گبریلا میگن تالنت هانتر؟
Okay. What he wanted to share with the young filmmakers is that funding the film is never easy, no matter if you're an expert or if you're a beginner. And he wants to ask you, what is a talent hunter? Why are you called a talent hunter?
Actually, this is... It's so nice that you make me today the talent hunter, and I love to be it. I think talent hunter, and also what I said with all my other international colleagues are here, we are looking for outstanding people. You know, we are looking for stories we have never heard before, but we also looking for souls we have never met before, when I may to say it so poetic, because that's the real truth. And what is so great, because what is the thing what fascinated me only in the film industry, and what I can give you as an advice, it's so good always to talk to the people and to have their experiences. And then, because what I said before, you become completely, you make a really great film, but you don't have, you know, the platform where you can put it, that it got the awareness that it worth to has, because it's never stopping, you know. I mean, if you have done already something, let's say, it's easier to get money, to get attention, to get whatever, even if your film stays on the national level or is on smaller festivals, that's not the problem. But then when you go out in the world, and we are going to the places where not so many other people are, this is also something for the talent hunters. We don't want to be too many at one location. And then what I see as my profession is really also that you talk to people, that hear and listen to people, and that you understand whether there is somebody who fits, for example, exactly in Berlinale talents. And I'm not so super important. I mean, I cannot say, I see you and you will come to Berlin next year. But of course, I can say, oh, I met some super interesting people, and it will have an eye on their application, you know, because this is what I wanted to say also in the beginning. There are so many things outside, and people need a kind of guidance also through that. And in this moment, let's say you know somebody from Germany, somebody from a festival in Sweden, somebody from a festival in Canada, somebody from New Zealand, and they said, oh, do you know him or her? Have you seen her film? Yeah, I have it first. You have to wait. You cannot have the premiere, you know. Then it's in a way done the very first step, and one of the beautiful steps. It's not meaning, as you said correctly, that you will have more money afterwards and easier financing for your film. But this is kind of a principle which you have to understand. It's much more important than speaking English fluently or whatever, that you are open to meet the right people. La la la.
Long answer. One page of answer.
که چیزی که هست برای این تالنت هانتر بودن اینه که شما باید دنبال آدم‌های ویژه بگردید، آدم‌هایی که با قصه هایی اومدن که کسی تا حالا نشنیده، آدم‌هایی که تحسین برانگیز بودن. یعنی این تمامش درباره حرف زدن با آدم‌ها و انتقال تجربه هاست. این یک فیلم خوب کافی نیست، شما باید اون پلتفرم رو داشته باشید که بتونید با اون آدم صحبت کنید. و چیزی که هست اینه که بعضی وقتا اینا یک جاهایی میرن که خیلی جشنواره بزرگی نیست، مثل برلین که مثلا خیلی عظیم باشه و نمیخوان تالنت هانترهای زیادی در یک مکان متمرکز بشن. یعنی این چیزیه که مهمه. چیزی که هست در مورد تالنت هانترها اینه که بدونن شکارچی استعداد اینه که بدونن اینجان که گوش کنن، بشناسن و میگن که خودشون اونقدر آدم مهمی نیستن که تواضع میکنن که بگن که تو استعداد ویژه‌ای هستی و سال دیگه در برلین خواهی بود، ولی میتونن اینو بگن که یک آدم خیلی جالب پیدا کردم. و مثلا گاهی وقتا این اتفاق میفته که شما یک آدمی از سوئد رو ملاقات میکنین، یک آدمی از بلژیک رو ملاقات میکنین، از آلمان، از کشورهای مختلف، و این آدم‌ها میشینن با هم دیگه صحبت میکنن و راجع به شما میگن که آره من این آدم رو شنیدم، راجع بهش میشناسید؟ آره میشناسم، بعد ولی صبر کنی که مثلا پریمیرش جشنواره من باشه، زودتر با من صحبت کرد و چیزای اینطوری. کار آسونی نیست ولی قاعده‌ای که مهمترین قاعده‌ای که باید رعایت شه اینه که که مهمتر از اینه که مسلط باشید به یک زبان خارجی، اینه که باز باشید برای معاشرت و برای ملاقات آدم‌های جدید.
آخرین سوال. حتما به اینه که اگر شما شانس بیارید توی یکی از این پیچینگ‌ها به اصطلاح بتونید فاند رو به دست بیارید، شانس به دست آوردن فاندهای بعدیتون توی این پیچینگ‌ها زیاد میشه. آیا حدس من درسته؟
He's guessing that if you are lucky enough to earn a fund in a pitching session, does that increase your chances of the following pitching sessions, of earning the funds in the pitching sessions coming afterwards?
Yeah, the thing is that normally it depends also, yes. First, yes. The answer is yes. And because you are already out in the world, you know you have done exactly this step which I said before, that among all these millions of great filmmakers which nobody knows in the world, you are already on a little pult or a podest where people can see you and know it. There are different way of pitching sessions. You have these pitching sessions where you have an award, and so you can travel from one pitching session to the other, and if you are lucky, you get 1,000 euros there, 500 euros there, 20,000 euros or dollars there, and this can work in a way to make a short film. And at the other hand, it's also always good if you choose very clear where you start with your film, And then it could be, if you are, for example, selected for a festival or a market somewhere in the world, at least it's in my country like this, if you then come back, it's easier for you also to get money in your home country. I don't know whether it's the same in your country, but I can imagine that it's interesting if you have a real talent also for the others. And in terms of, what is the sad thing about filmmaking is that it always starts from point zero then with the next project you're having. It's really, you know, you make a first film, everything works, you fight for 2-3 years, then finally it's done. You even are invited to a big festival and you even have an award or a recognition from the jury there, and you go back with your next project and they said, really, you want to do that now too? So this can happen to you all the time. So I think filmmaking is a lot about really finding the right people, and it's not, you know, for kind of just saying it. I think you can help a lot, for example, when a festival likes you and then they invite you and then they take maybe over your travel costs, which is really important for all filmmakers, that you don't have too many extra costs. They invite you, you have the network there, you are a special guest. This is, for me, would be the first really great outcome from a pitching.
I understand you do teaching for pitching.
Yes.
Would you like to come to Iran and do this?
Yes, I did it the last 2 days. And it was wonderful.
No, I mean,
and I would like to come of course. It was a wonderful experience, because what was really great, that, I do this kind of pitching training, you know, I started with the lecture, then we have like a rehearsal, so everybody has really to stand there and to present something in 7 minutes, and the whole group is giving feedback, and I kind of help in structuring, and then today we have one-to-one meetings to go a bit deeper in that, and it's so beautiful, and this is what I mean, that you have to do it project by project. You know, when you understand the general things, it's great, but you all look like you can follow this easily, you know, having a good project, who am I, how can I sell it? The second step is that you have the self-confidence, that you really go out. Yeah, this is very important. You have really to talk. The time is over where an artist is only sitting in his room and saying, I'm a genius, sorry, nobody sees me. This is not in anymore. You have really to work hard for that break.
Is Gabriela,
Yeah.
is pitching good job?
Can I have some
It's a
time,
lot of,
please?
Pitching is a good job.
Teaching is a super job, because, you know, what I like, I can tell you very honestly, you can never translate, I know. He asked me a question, how can I not give him an answer? Please.
واقعا خیلی خیلی متشکریم گبریل برون میر برای اینکه امشب اومدی اینجا. آره.
اوکی. جوابی که میخوان بدن، خدا صبر بده، اینه که بله، چون که وقتی که در یک جلسه پیچینگ انتخاب میشین، اینه که بین میلیون ها فیلمساز شما بالا اومدین و مطرح شدین و اسمتون شنیده میشه. البته که اگه شما این شانس رو داشته باشید که بتونید جای مختلف سفر کنید و از جشنواره مختلف فاندهای مختلف بگیرید، که چه بهتر، مثلا از یه جا 1000 یورو، از یه جا 500 یورو، از این ور اون ور. و این چیزی که هست اینه که شما باید تصمیم بگیرید از کدوم کشور شروع کنید. اگه مثلا تا حالا فیلمتون برای یک جشنواره رفته و داورهای اون جشنواره شما رو میشناسن، خب قاعدتاً برای فیلم دومتون شما شناخته تر هستید اونجا و خوش آمدگوی شما هستن، و اگه این پروسه ادامه داشته باشه شاید حتی دعوتتون کنن، شاید حتی بخشی از هزینه سفرهاتون رو به عهده بگیرن، و تمام ماجرا اینه که شما آدم‌هایی رو پیدا کنید که آدم‌های مناسب شما هستن، که مهمان ویژه یک سری آدم بشید. بعد آقای دکتر پرسیدن که شما در طول 2-3 روز گذشته داشتید آموزش پیچینگ میدادین، که ایشون جواب دادن بله، و اتفاقی که افتاده اینه که اولی توضیح میدن که نشسته پیچینگ اصلا چی هست، و بعد مثلا سخنرانی میکنن در مورد اون، آموزش میدن که دقیقاً چی هست و بعد تمرین میشه و بعد از گروه‌های دیگه بازخورد گرفته میشه و مدام عمیق‌تر میشه و دقیقاً منظورشون همینه وقتی که میگن پروژه به پروژه باید پیش بره ماجرا. و چیزی که هست اینه که شما باید اعتماد به نفس ارائه خودتون رو داشته باشید. اینکه یک هنرمند باید بتونه خودش رو پرزنت کنه و اینکه بشینه تو اتاق و بگه من چه نابغه‌ای هستم غالباً کافی نیست، اصلا مد نیست دیگه و شما باید برید بیرون و راجع به فیلمتون صحبت کنید.
اجازه دارم یک تجربه شخصی امروز بگم بچه‌ها. من امروز جلسه‌ای که با خانم گبریل داشتم و بعضی از بچه‌های دیگه هم حالا دور و نزدیک فهمیدم، من یه تجربه داشتم که این تجربه شخصیم بود و تجربه اقدام به خودکشی در 15 سالگی بود. توی پیچ کردنم در چند روز آینده که میرم برای ایتفای آمستردام میخواستم بگم که من همزمان هم تجربه کشته شدن رو داشتم و معصومیت یک کسی که قرار کشته بشه، هم تجربه قاتل رو داشتم. در همزمان با هم دیگه قاتل بودم و مقتول بودم و بسیار خوب پیشنهاد کرد به من که چجوری اینو توی بدنه متنی که میخوای بعد از تریلر 3 دقیقه‌ای، من کلاً 7 دقیقه وقت دارم، 3 دقیقه فیلممه، تریلرمه، 3 دقیقه حرف میزنم و 1 دقیقه یکی از پشتیبان هام که برتر فاند هلنده میخواد بگه چرا این پروژه مهمیه که ما ازش حمایت کردیم. اما خب 500 نفر تماشاگرن، 40 نفر فاینانسرن که صدها هزار دلار اونجا آماده است برای اینکه بین کسایی که میخوان ارائه کنن، اگر خوب ارائه کنن بتونن باشون وارد مذاکره باشن. اما مسئله اصلیم اینه که چجوری این who am I، من کیم و نسبت من با فیلمم و نسبت من با آن کسایی که دارن میشنون طرح منو، ایشون چجوری کمک میکنن که این بخش بیاد توی بدنه متن که ما میخوایم بگیم و پیچ کنیم. چجوری خودمو حتی به عنوان فیلمساز مستند توی ارائه طرحم بیارم، چجوری این که من کیم و چه بخشی از من توی فیلمم هست و نگاهم و احساسم. این به نظر من تجربه‌ای که خیلی تجربه خاصیه، چون ما معمولاً یه توضیح کلی میخوام به بچه‌ها بدم، ما معمولاً میگم فیلم داستانیمون، مستندمون، انیمیشنمون چیه، راجع به چیه، ولی خودمون خیلی توش نیستیم. این تجربه بسیار یکی و ویژه‌ای بود برای من که چجوری ما خودمون میتونیم توی اون باشیم، حضور داشت. و این تجربه‌ای که من یاد گرفتم خیلی خوب امروز از ایشون.
Okay, he wants to share one of his a personal experience for him. He wanted to commit suicide when he was 15 years old, and his scenario, the pitching he wants to give is about him as an innocent victim, and at the same time being a furious killer simultaneously. So you explained him very well how to do that in the time he had, in the 3-minute talk he had, because he had 3 minutes for his film, and then 3 minutes he could talk about himself, and then 1 minute the company that was behind him. اسم شرکت چی بود؟
برتر فاند جشنواره ایتفا.
Bertha Font, who was behind him, has also 1 minute to talk. How to express who am I and my relations with the film, because there are like 500 audience and 40 fund deciders and hundreds of dollars to be invested, and then his relation with the film and how his own experience helped him to be there. How to put myself out and express his own point of view, his emotions, his self actually out there. And what he says to his students is that what your film is about. He never asks what does it have to do with you, the film. How are you in it? So he thinks that's very important, how to be a part of the film that you are making.
سوالم اینه که چجوری این بخشو وارد میکنن.
That's the question. How can you enter that part? How can you enter yourself in the film?
That's a good question.
Was it for me?
It's
a
the answer.
philosophical question.
That's the answer. Oh, it's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, you know, that this is what when you combine, the thing is that when you talk or when you write about the film, you have one problem. You're using a complete other language than the one which your film will be told in later. So there is always missing this in time and in space and you know, this, that you can have sound. I mean, this is also what is very special about your films, that the sound and the pictures and everything are used in the balance to really make your film the film it is, and to leave a room also for the audience, which is very important in filmmaking, that there's always a room for the audience where they can open up their own imagination. And it's also the same with the pitching. In the pitching, it's also very important that you have the room of imagination. What you have when you talk about your film in public, you have a human being, and maybe you have some visuals, or as in your case, you have already a perfect trailer ready, which gives the atmosphere of the film. But normally when you go out with a project for ITFA, you have to do it. There's no other way. And for some pitching, especially in the field of documentary or animation, you really need to show already something. Otherwise, people would not give a look at you, because an animation story is so different. What kind of animation you have, a documentary story is so different. What kind of protagonist you have, but also how you will talk about them. And I mean, what we discussed, and thank you so much. I feel so honored. First of all, I was so honored that you asked my advice, and then it's great to meet you and to see these wonderful films. And I mean, it's also easy for somebody who teach pitching. If the project is good, if the filmmaker is great, it's not so difficult to find good words to express this. But even if you have all this already, some people, you know, what is the thing? I know I have to stop. I cannot do that, really. Next time I sit next to her and all 10 sentences she has to make. Stop. Sorry for that.
No, don't say that. Okay. اوکی، چیزی که هست اینه که وقتی دارید راجع به جلوی اون مخاطب راجع به فیلم خودتون حرف میزنید یا مینویسید، به زبان متفاوتیه از زبان فیلمتون. اون گپ های زبانی پیش میاد، چون که بر فیلم به یک زبان دیگه‌ای داره ساخته میشه، و همین که باید شما وقتی فیلم دارید هم صدا دارید و هم تصویر دارید و یه بالانسی بین این دوتا هست، ولی وقتی این رو میدید هنوز اون فیلم رو ندارید. و چیزی که مهمه اینه که فضا بذارید برای تخیل مخاطب که بتونن خودشون هم یه جهانبینی از اون فیلم داشته باشن. به حال ابزاری که دارید خیلی محدوده، ولی یه چیز دیگه هم هست. وقتی که دارید پیچینگ برای انیمیشن یا مستند انجام میدید، حتما باید یه چیزی از قبل ارائه بدید، مثلا اینکه قهرمانتون کیه و چه جوری دارید راجبش حرف میزنید، وگرنه که حتی نگاهتون هم نمیکنن. اینا رو حتما باید رعایت کنید. و یه چیزی هم که تاکید کردن این بود که خیلی حرف زدن با شما مایه افتخارشون بود و خیلی قدردانن که این صحبت رو امروز با شما داشتن. آقای حسین، خب
اجازه بدید به من دارن اعلام میکنن که تا وقتمون تموم شده. من میخوام مجددا، متاسفانه وقت نیست. ما باید ساعت 11:30 تموم میکردیم جلسه رو. اجازه بدید من تشکر کنم. متاسفم ما باید جلسه رو تمومش کنیم. اجازه بدید من مجددا تشکر کنم از گبریل که به ما پیوست و it was a wonderful night and you did a wonderful job talking to everybody. خیلی متشکرم از همه. تشریف آورید. فردا هم هست هنوز.